Year 12 is pretty much synonymous with stress. After that, I had some pretty effective ways of dealing with it that I developed over the years, so that fear and stress didn't really hold me back. What's up guys, welcome back. I'm Darren, a first year medical student studying at Monash University here in Melbourne, Australia. In today's video we'll be talking about stress. Now this is pretty important for those of you who are sitting year 12 and your SACs are starting to pile up, but I feel like this is something that applies to anyone in life. Stress is something that stays with us for a very, very long time, and it often crops up in high pressure situations as well. So today's video I'll be splitting it up into two parts. In the first part, I'll be talking about how I deal with sort of job stress. And this means stress from your academics, for those of you who are students, and also stress from jobs, for those of you who are working. And in the second half of the video, we'll be talking about social stress and how I deal with social stress. So that constitutes things like relationships and also sort of family issues as well. So enjoy the show. First up, job stress. Now this can be academic stress or it can be stress from your job. I like to think of these types of stress as ones that you can actively combat and ones that you can actually chip away at. So it's, I feel like in a way, easier to deal with than social stress. So for me personally, and I developed this strategy more so in year 12, was to just ask myself, what am I most worried about? What am I most stressed about? Or if you want to frame it more positively, in a week's time, what will I most like to have achieved? And the answer to that is usually quite concrete in job stress. So for example, for studies, it might be a particular topic like vector proofs, chain rule, anti-differentiation, or even things like this particular theme of this book that I'm studying. I haven't explored it yet and I really want to explore it. In terms of jobs, it can be things like deadlines, assignments that are coming up, or maybe there's an aspect of your job that you're not entirely comfortable with doing yet. Like you don't feel like you're adept at it quite yet. And I feel like once you identify that, it's really just a matter of working at it. So just really realizing that this is the source of your stress, and just by doing it will lead you to productively overcome that stress. What can make this a bit harder is if you're quite behind in work, and if you're like extremely stressed. And in that case, it's still the same layout. You still ask yourself the question, what am I most worried about? And you still do it. But I feel like it's just more important to have an awareness in that scenario that it might take time. Like things will take time, but it's these incremental things, first learning this topic, then this topic, that will really help you out in the long term. And so for me, I feel like a point where I was particularly stressed in year 12, and a point that I recall was probably the end of term 3, when I realized like, hey, there's not that long till the final year exams, and it seemed like it was coming really quick, like all 6 subjects, and a lot of the things earlier in the year I haven't practiced yet, like the English essays. We've been just done the comparative SAC. I haven't had time to look at the first SAC, the first like major SAC, which was the text response SAC. I haven't had time to go over that for the end of year exam. And I was quite stressed about that. And I realized it would take a lot of effort because 6 subjects and a lot of work earlier in the year to revise. But I really just said to myself to calm down, to just lay out what I was worried about. And I would write a text response essay once a week. And I would work on the topics that I was uncomfortable with in terms of maths. And slowly, and it's a long process, but I feel like this is a very productive way of slowly alleviating that stress. Now, I understand that for some people, crying and having breakdowns is also a way of them dealing with stress. I feel like that's a good way of just getting into a proper emotional state. Sometimes you feel overwhelmed by what's coming up, and I feel like just releasing it in that flurry of emotions is really conducive to having yourself in the right emotional state. But ultimately, in the long term, I feel like if you want to properly get over this stress and like actually fully get rid of it, then the best way is to just ask yourself, what is it? And then just tackle that directly. And just have that emotional response at the start, sort of, so that you can get yourself in the first emotional mindset, but in the long term, try and work on it in a more like actively productive way. And also, this is something I told myself when I was stressing over small things. So I'm not talking about you crying or having a nervous breakdown, but when things are relatively minor, like, okay, I got a SAC coming up. next week. Like I don't feel like that's that big of a deal, but it's still stressful, and I'd feel like paralyzed by that stress. I'd be thinking about it a lot. I'll sort of say to myself, okay, there's time to be stressing, there's time to be working on what's actually worrying me. So I should divert my time more into that side of things, and so I can actually overcome this stress. Now I feel like sometimes trying to think practically in times of these job stresses is really helpful to overcoming them. Next up, we have life stress. Now this is quite complex and can be from a variety of places. For example, a relationship that's not going well, or say family health issues, and also just feeling unhappy in general. Now I feel like for this type of stress, it's quite important to be in a good mental state, because this can be like very debilitating, and so things like crying, and even just speaking to someone helps a lot. I also think exercise is very good, because oftentimes when we are filled with these emotions at our life stress, and oftentimes because there's not a direct way of sort of fixing it in the short term, we really need a way to get rid of it and to release it. And I feel like exercise, when you're exerting yourself, in the pool, going for a run, or just shooting hoops, it really helps alleviate the feeling of that stress, while like not combating the actual source of it. But the actual source of it is often quite hard to deal with as well. But what exercise really does help with is just being in a better mental state of mind. In terms of like combating and fixing this type of stress, it's much more complex than job stress. But in general, I feel like it's just not getting too caught up in an ideal, but rather just having an understanding of the way things are. Because oftentimes with life stress, it's going to take time to get there. Relationships take time. Family health issues take time. And yes, there are things we can control. We can help our relative go through rehab. We can be ourselves when talking to someone we like. But oftentimes these factors just lie outside our control. Like whether the disease progresses, whether the person likes us back, we really can't control that. And oftentimes those are the things that people get most caught up in. So the things we can't control are often the things that people get most caught up in. And I feel like it's just having an acceptance that some things are beyond our control, and just being comfortable with our boundaries is really important. And just respecting that if things don't work out, they don't work out. And I also feel like with life stress, there are only like two ways you can view this stress or this problem and this situation. One, like negatively, and two, positively. There's really only two states there. You can, be very sad about it, and that's good to have. It's like not bad, but if you continue on being sad for a very long time, then that's not very helpful. Or you can just choose to be more positive about it. You've done what you can, you do what you can, and then after that, it's sort of just leave everything to happen. Getting caught up in what you can't control won't help the situation, and feeling rushed won't help time move faster. All it does is just make you feel worse. And so I feel like when you lay out those really two distinct mindsets, one positive, one negative, I just don't see why anyone would choose in the long term that negative and really overly stressed mindset. And I genuinely thought about this. So every time something sort of big would happen, or when I had a feeling of stress that wasn't really academic related, it just felt like suffocating and suppressive, and that my life wasn't where I wanted it to be. That's sort of the mindset that I had. Okay, I can be very positive about this, or I can be negative about it. So I choose to be positive. And also, that's the way of sort of dealing with it. Because often this stress takes time, and you just want to enjoy that time and not just and not be overly sad during that period of time. And I don't want to get too sappy on you guys, but in general and overall, and I genuinely followed this, is to control what you can control. And if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't matter, because you've done all you can. It's no point getting too stressed about an outcome that you had no control over. And so I think that we often overestimate the impact of and the importance of things that are happening to us in the current moment. Just a heads up, some other ways of dealing with stress. In terms of job stress, you can watch some of my YouTube videos if you're studying VCE or studying in general, and hopefully they can help you out. And also feel free to DM me. My Instagram is down in the description box, and I'm happy to have a chat about any stresses that you might have in your studies and in your life. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I sort of, hopefully I remember there's not much out there on mental state, particularly for students. So hopefully this video can just let you guys know that I felt this as well. People are going through it, and like these are some ways that I found really helped me, and hopefully just give them a go and maybe they can help you out as well. So good luck for the term. I hope it started off well. I hope like you are not completely overwhelmed yet, but yeah, just keep on preparing, keep on marching onwards, and I look forward to seeing you all next time.